Jason Whitlock. I said that name. It's not a name I've uttered. I normally don't do that, but it's necessary to do now. I've had enough of that fat bastard. He even went so far as to say my autobiography, where I talk about my mother, my father, my sisters, the business, my hiring and firing and rehiring at ESPN. I didn't write it. Did you tell them that once this same article in Deadspin came out, weeks later you wrote a lengthy apology to me in an email begging me to forgive you, you bitch? Did you tell them? You fat piece of shit.
How you doing, Cap?
I'm doing good, man. There's been some, this is kind of crazy, man. Your favorite content creator, your favorite producer, Stephen A. Smith, man, with the heat. With the heat.
Why would you start the video off like this, man? You already know I don't like Stephen A. Smith. But I gotta tell you, and I even dropped this comment on his video. I respect him a whole lot more after the podcast he just uploaded like a day and a half ago at the time of this recording.
Yeah.
He went pause. I can't say that. He went fucking ape shit. He went like scorched earth.
Yeah. I mean,
on that Whitlock guy.
I mean, bro, he called him a bitch. Not just a bitch. You a bitch. Like, you know, just like, you know, really stood the
Stretch that out.
Yeah, it was so funny, man. It's so funny from like, you know, Disney Stephen A. Smith just on these airwaves saying, you's a bitch.
Can you call him Disney A. Smith?
Disney A. Smith, I mean, Jesus. But, you know, it's interesting, though, with the Jason Whitlock situation between him and Stephen A. I'm a little bit surprised he would even entertain Whitlock at this point, right?
Right.
But I think due to what Whitlock said, he's like, you know what? Tired of these lies being said on my name. I'm just going to come out with the receipts. And he cooked him. Like, he just outright cooked him alive.
Yeah.
I mean, when you come down to essentially saying that Whitlock was trying to, you know, apologize to him like a bitch when he was trying to desperately ask for people to be involved in a black focused group, like a community group.
The Undefeated.
The Undefeated.
Yeah.
He's like, nah, like, you a bitch. And I think it was, quite frankly, a great decimation of Jason Whitlock, who, quite frankly, man, I've never cared for him either. I think it's not anything to do with his politics or anything of that ilk. I just think he's fucking boring. If I'm being kind of honest with you, he is boring. The only thing notable, in my opinion, he has ever done was be involved in those like top 10 lists on the NFL Network of top 10 certain positions or players or eras or whatever. That's the only thing notable I've even seen him do. And it seems like he burns every single fucking bridge he has. So who's to blame with the reputation Whitlock has gained? Is Stephen A. Smith out of pocket? I mean, every single bridge. Burnt that motherfucker to the ground. We're to the point where he's working at the Blaze TV. Blaze.
Stephen A was really like, dudes, I know that our values aren't the same, but I'm not going at you guys. It's just that there's a difference between ESPN and Fox Sports and the Blaze. And if he could actually hold employment like the white guy that he wishes he was, he would be at one of those two networks or at, you know, 100%. Some high-end, you know, sports website somewhere. And he is basically the Uncle Ruckus sports guy.
Don't trust them new niggas with their spotty little nigga figures. Don't trust them new niggas over there.
I think the N-word is okay as long as they say it.
I mean, that's who he is over there.
It is. And we've had greater discussions on the phone because a lot of the conversations we have, I feel like we just can't really have as much on the internet because you can't really. What's that?
He said that. You was like, yo, I don't want to touch that, man. I don't want to touch that.
Don't want to touch that. I was like, you know what? But because we can have really good conversations about it. But I mean, Whitlock to me, right? And I'm more of a white conservative. I'm more the base he's going for, right? I just don't allegedly. I don't like fraudulent people. I don't like liars. I don't like people that don't have a good track record. And it's just, to me, when you're trying to sell me something, you instantly turn me off, right?
Yep.
Like, for example, the sports coverage done by Outkick, I think is straight. I mean, Outkick is just straight. It's straight garbage because it's the exact thing they complain about that they say that the ESPN woke quote unquote people do, where it's all politics.
They just give you the same in
It's
reverse.
the same bullshit with a different spin. That's why I don't
Right.
really. It's not for me. I just want to watch sports and just kind of go into that world and not deal with the craziness.
Right.
But with Whitlock, it's a little bit. I mean, he's boring. I don't think his writing's that good. I've read some of his articles. They're kind of meh. I think a 8th grader, high school level student could write these articles. And I think he has this big, grandiose opinion of himself, like that he's some like Godfather type figure where I'm like, nah, you're just kind of mediocre. Like, if I'm going to keep it all the way real.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, if you're on the Blaze TV, your career is fucked. Like
Yeah,
a guy like that should be on like an ESPN, a Fox Sports, something of that nature, right?
Yeah.
Something that you could really build a name off. Like, who's going to Blaze TV for sports takes? Like, the only thing that's made Whitlock relevant is this Stephen A. Smith thing, and then also his interaction with Katie Nolan. And I decided to give myself cancer again and watch some of the Whitlock like response video, and it was kind of garbage. And it's funny for a guy that's so concerned about, oh, well, Stephen A. Smith won this profanity-laden thing. I'm like, you're the same motherfucker that was saying Katie Nolan got to where she's at because she was sucking dick. That, like, you can't sit here with all moral high ground if you're out here just saying that Katie Nolan got to where she's at.
He basically says she's Kamala Harris.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you can miss me with that bullshit.
Right.
And we could go into a whole Katie Nolan conversation, way a different video. But
she's really hot though, man.
But and we can talk about the pitfalls of her career. But to me, with Jason Whitlock, I don't know. It's just when you burn every single like, if every single person you've ever interacted has nothing good to say about you, how many times is it going to be like, well, like, maybe look in the mirror, understand that maybe you have some fault here, maybe it's you're somewhat to blame. And it seems like he tries to take this holier than thou stance, and it's just I don't know. It's just, can every single person he's worked with and burnt bridges with, are they all wrong, right? Is he just a massive victim to every single person, or does Whitlock act like a scumbag? Honest question.
Well, there's some of the takeaways that I have when it comes to this guy. I can't stand this guy. He does a lot of the race baiting things that really turned me off from back when he was with ESPN and then with Fox Sports, because that was one of the things that turned me off to him, from the beginning. But then when you talk about his writing, okay, you think he's boring, but he was obviously a good enough columnist to make it to that level. So when you're talking about his failure being evident by being at the Blaze, we're in no way saying that the Blaze is a failure of a network. That when you look at the other people who are on the Blaze, these are independent content creators who have smaller to mid-sized YouTube channels that ascended to the level of Blaze TV. This guy was on ESPN.
Yep.
This guy was part of Disney working at the Blaze TV. And so this is not really a knock on Blaze. They say some things I agree with. Most of the stuff probably disagree with, right? They're not, my go-to for content on YouTube. And so, but this is not to knock them. It's that his star was supposed to be bright. He's a big fish in a small pond, pun fully intended. Now, when you're talking about the bridges that he burned, Cap, you nailed it right on the head. I just think that when everybody has a problem with you, from the black people that you denigrated to the white conservatives that you tried to ingratiate yourself to, when everybody on all sides and all sub-demographics come to the same opinion about you, it's not everybody else. It's you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of gotten to the point where every single relationship has been fractured. I mean, even that weird partnership he had with Outkick for a bit, who I don't think highly of, like with Clay Travis, and there's nothing really publicly been said, but that whole divorce was pretty messy as well. Whitlock is a guy that will burn a bridge, and he does not care to look back. And that, that's where he belongs though with Blaze TV, because with how they have operated in the past with their content creators and like either made unfair contracts, locked them out so they couldn't produce.
I was about to
content.
ask you, Machinima?
Yeah, like to me, yeah, you deserve to be at Blaze TV. And quite frankly, a guy like Whitlock, right? He needs to be the big fish in the small pond. He is just, his ego can't take, like, he needs to, if you're working with him, you need to be blowing him, pause, all the way through. Because quite frankly, he just can't deal with the consequences of his own actions. Now, you made me watch Dan Le Batard's show, and Jamel Hill was on it, right?
Right, yeah.
I don't know what the fuck Le Batard was wearing, whatever the fuck that was.
Oh, man, he looks like a fucking weirdo. Like, what the fuck you doing, man?
But anyway, like, Highly Questionable was a good show for multiple years on ESPN with his father. Jamel Hill, she was on ESPN for such a long time. Really,
She had that pseudo-romance with Michael Smith.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say I'm the biggest Jamel Hill fan.
I'm not a Jamel Hill fan.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna sit here, I'm caping for her, but she brought up.
She does way too much race baiting for me.
She brought up some interesting points about like the whole situation with Whitlock and how Dan Le Batard was the one to actually get a little bit of shit for it, because he's the one that tried to, how would I put this? Stick up for Jason Whitlock.
Yeah, tried to vouch for Jason Whitlock. And he was like, well, I vouch for him because of his work as a journalist. And it's like, dude, one of the things I've learned in the world, man, is that what you know and the talents that you have don't mean nearly as much as the relationships that you foster in this life.
100%.
I've never been the most talented at anything. I do have a good attention to detail. But I've never really been particularly skilled or talented at anything. One of the things that have gotten me through life are the relationships that I've created with people by showing people sometimes more respect than most people think that you should show to somebody under any circumstance. I go out of my way to look out for other people, even when it does not advantage me.
Right.
And so what ends up happening is I end up in situations where I'm advantaged because people understand that I care about somebody other than myself.
Right.
And I may not be, like, in my profession, I am not the best personal trainer that ever lived. I'm not. Right? Do I understand the science, biomechanics, all that stuff? Yes. But what has gotten me to where I'm at today? The relationships that I have fostered with people that has grown out of the respect that I have for them, that allows them to then reciprocate and give to me.
And I think that's important in anything you do in life, is relationships and how you foster them. Because Stephen A. Smith himself says it doesn't really matter. Like, might have different ideology, different opinion. Like, I have friends on both sides of the aisle. I said I don't really play in the whole one singular thing, which
right.
I think I somewhat agree with what he's saying there. But I think he plays a certain aisle, a certain lane. But to me, Whitlock, whether it was the left or the right or the center, he just burned all his bridges. And that's not how you operate, and that's not how you be successful in life. Because, how you treat your coworkers, how you treat your bosses, how you end things, right? really kind of indicates who you are as a person. I could have gone out and I've spoken some negative things about my former employer with my whole situation, right? Where they were months behind on injury, like workers' compensation checks and stuff like that. I can understand even being frustrated with it, but even then I've held back a lot of that anger, vitriol.
Yeah, you just said what happened. You didn't say they're horrible people and all this stuff. You said they did this, they did that, they said some things that were untrue, and it was frustrating. And that's different than Whitlock talking shit about people. And here's the thing, man. It's one thing if you're a Keemstar, like where your whole internet presence as a so-called journalist is talking about other people. Jason Whitlock is supposed to be a journalist on the sports side. That means that a lot of his commentary should be on sports and the athlete's performance in those sports.
Yeah.
When you're talking about all the bridges that he burned, you're talking about a guy who spends a lot of his professional time talking about other professionals in his purview instead of actually doing the job that he's supposed to. You're not supposed to be talking about other journalists as a journalist. You're supposed to be talking about the sport and the players.
Yeah.
And you're spending such a great amount of time and energy pointing a finger at other people. And it's like, well, that's why you're not successful. It's not because, your writing is bad, because you might find him to be boring, but it wasn't the boringness that got me to stop listening to him. It wasn't his boringness. Why is he not getting the hits while Shannon Sharp is getting 42 million views on a single podcast? Well, Shannon Sharp was able to create relationships beyond sports.
Yeah.
And he is respected even by people he doesn't work with anymore.
I think when it kind of comes down to it, it's a good case study of how to conduct yourself, learn how to conduct yourself. Like, I think for me early on when I was making content of far smaller scale than any of these people, but let's just be honest, sometimes you have jealousy hit you, right? Because like, why is this person making content? And like, I feel like I'm doing better content. Why isn't my shit getting views, right?
Yep.
As like with our latest projects with the hockey and with this, it's like I've matured a lot to understand like everybody can out here and eat. Everybody can be successful. Just because they're successful doesn't mean it won't mean that you can eventually be successful. Like, it's just like, you want to have the mindset of like, yo, that's good for them, man. Congratulations, man. Like, good, you're doing well. Like, you don't let jealousy take a hold and take a foot of your personality or just kind of your worldview. And that's what I think with Whitlock, a lot of it is. It's just bitterness, it's jealousy, because like Shannon Sharp, whether you like him, hate him, or whatever, you could not deny the empire this man has built. And the ability also, the one thing I love and respect about Shannon Sharp is he took an ugly situation with Skip Bayless towards the end there, didn't really flame him completely on the way out. Now, he had some choice words after, like on the Club Shay Shay or some shows afterwards with Stephen A, but he was never completely disrespectful. And he's built up his platform where he's got the most viewed podcast last month, I'd have to say, right, with 43 million views at this point.
Crazy.
And then he's also built up, like Chad Johnson, him, like the Nightcap. And like he's sharing his success. Why do you think people gravitate towards a guy like Shannon Sharp, regardless of what you think of what he says? You can respect, right? Me and Shannon Sharp probably don't align much politically, right? But I can respect what he does because he builds up the people around him. If you're a builder, people will love you. People will respect you. Whitlock isn't a builder. He's a destroyer. And that is why he is exactly where he's at on the Blaze TV, where he'll have some moments of viral videos when he's talking about other more successful people.
Boom, right there.
But himself, he's irrelevant for a big reason.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. I was talking to you earlier today on the phone about this, and one of the things that I noticed, and I said this to you earlier, that when Shannon Sharp did the Cat Williams video, it got over 40 million views. Some of those views were from content creators that were looking to make content based upon, because Cat Williams broke the internet.
Oh, yeah,
I haven't heard haven't heard a single content creator say Shannon Sharp copyrighted my video.
No.
I haven't heard a single. Shannon Sharp understands that, and I talked to you about this earlier today, about how you get these guys that come off of network television, because even with the Come Talk to Me podcast with Mace and Cameron.
Yeah.
And then you have Stephen A. Smith. He's on here now. And you have Shannon Sharp. He's on here now. And you have Drink Champs. And you have all of these different guys that were at the top level making a lot of money, getting a lot of visibility outside of YouTube. They recognize that there's some AdSense dollars and some super chats over here. And then they're all clamoring over here. And it's like, well, us independent guys that never had a chance to make the kind of money and get the views that those guys got on network television, now they're coming over here and it's like, well, there's only a limited, if somebody's watching their stuff, that means they're not watching our stuff.
Right.
But a guy like Shannon Sharp, he's not out there like, oh yeah, this guy used my content, let me strike them down. No, he's actually giving back to the community. He's giving back to the YouTube ecosystem by saying, hey, I'm not gonna copyright the stuff here because there's enough for all of us.
Well,
I don't need to keep you down to lift myself up. And that's how he is able to get somebody like a Cat Williams to show, because Cat Williams is not showing up on everybody's podcast.
No, now people wish he would show up on every friggin' person's podcast, because Cat Williams, I mean, I'll just put it this way. I'll put this way, DG. You know my wife, right? She legitimately doesn't. Oh, fuck off. She legitimately.
I know who she is.
Yeah.
I never got to speak to her.
Yeah, legitimately though, she doesn't follow social media like that. Doesn't, like, she got rid of like Facebook. She don't interact with social media. She just, she's a teacher. She's doing her thing, bro. Right. I go into the fucking living room the other night, and guess what she's playing, bro? The Cat Williams interview. And I'm like, you don't even, like, what? Like, you? And she's like, well, I saw it. And I said, this is, like, really interesting. And I'm like, that's how big of a pull that had. Just someone that doesn't really watch YouTube, doesn't really go on social media like that.
I know that about her.
That pulled her into the Cat Williams thing. And we were just cracking up, like, listening to it. Right. But it's just, to me, with Shannon Sharp, he's the perfect, I would say, the perfect counter to what Jason Whitlock is. That he builds up, he helps the community, he kind of keeps growing things, he builds up, like I said, builds up the people around him. If Jason Whitlock had a different attitude, even with his political slant, he could have been far more successful than he is if he didn't burn every fucking bridge he had. And that is why he is exactly where he's at. And we talk about a lot of, elevating and trying to help young men, guide them. This is a good learning lesson. The way you treat people in life is very important. If you're going to be bitter, jealous, angry at the world, treat people like shit, remember that
thinking that you're going to get to the top by stepping on everybody's back.
Remember, that might help you for a bit. Maybe it helps you get a few steps and up that rung. But you don't know, that person that you pissed off and disrespected, they might elevate quicker than you at a higher rate. And then your boss, or they're above you, and you need a handout, and they're like, nah, fuck you. Yep. Because when I was on the ground up, when I was working my way up, you were a complete disrespectful asshole. Yep. So, I mean, we probably went a little bit longer than we expected with this video, but I mean, I think the conversation has to be, held. I think Jason Whitlock is a perfect case study of what not to do if you want to grow, whether as a successful businessman, whether it be on social media, whatever venture. I mean, if you do the exact opposite of what Whitlock has done, you'll be successful in life.
And to tidy it up, man, I think that is really important, because we get people of all walks of life that come through TSP. Yeah. And we are grateful for every single one of you. The thing is, it does not matter what you believe. It doesn't matter what you know. It doesn't matter what your talents are. It doesn't matter what your political affiliations are. Regardless of any of those things that differentiate one person from another, there's one unifying thread that goes across the board, and that is respect begets respect. And people who are not true to their own, they're not true to themselves, they try to cut corners, people don't respect them.
No.
And Jason Whitlock is the perfect example of that principle in action.
100%.
That dude could be way more successful in his industry and maybe have crossed over into other industries outside of sports if he would have cultivated relationships. But he's tried to step on other people to get to the top. And then when he thought that it would benefit him, hey, I'm going to go to the undefeated. I need black writers. Oh, but wait, I spent years disrespecting those people, and then I'm going to apologize to them to get them to work for me and continue to make me look good.
Yeah.
And then I don't understand why nobody wants to work with me. Really?
Oh man, you gotta love delusion. It's the greatest attribute for anyone to have. But you know what? Let's throw this to the viewer. I mean, this would be an interesting conversation.
Sound off, motherfuckers.
What do you think of Jason Whitlock and the whole scenario, I would say conflict with Stephen A. Smith? Do you think he's in the right? Do you think Jason Whitlock is a victim, or do you think he's an asshole and, he's getting what he deserved? I think that'd be interesting to see down below in the comment section. We appreciate you guys popping through. Anything else to add there, DEG?
Don't be a dick.
Yeah, don't be a dick.